In just 2 days, our Minnesota Vikings take on the Atlanta Falcons down in Atlanta, Georgia, at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and I'm all jacked up for it. But the Atlanta Falcons are going to be without their superstar or their star wide receiver. We already heard the news this morning, so we have to look at the final injury report for both teams. Who's in, who's out, who's questionable? What is this game looking like as we sit here on this glorious Friday night? So let's take a look at the Vikings first and see who's not going to be playing, who's questionable, who should be ready to rock and roll, and then we'll dive in real quick to the Atlanta Falcons, who have 3 people who will not be playing this Sunday, and that does not count, I believe, Grady Jarrett, who tore his ACL, defensive lineman. He is done for the season, so that's a massive hit to that Atlanta Falcons defensive line. So we should be able to get the run game going, hopefully, because we talked about that yesterday. That's one of the offensive keys that we need to do to win the ball game. So let's look at the final injury report for both teams, starting for the Minnesota Vikings. We only have one player who will not be playing this Sunday. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Dean Lowry, who is dealing with a groin injury. Now, Dean Lowry injured his groin against the Packers in the first quarter and didn't practice all week, which obviously means he's not going to see the field this upcoming Sunday. Maybe it's a little bit serious or more serious than we thought it was going to be with Dean Lowry, but I would expect him back within the next week or two, depending on how well he can transition from that injury. But Dean Lowry will not be playing. Questionable for the Minnesota Vikings this weekend, 3 players. First one being inside linebacker Brian Asamoah. He's been banged up a little bit all season. He's dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury, so he is not 100%. Yes, he's going to play, and he's not 100%. No, he's not going to play. Also, wide receiver Jalen Naylor still dealing with that hamstring injury. Going to probably expect him to miss in the next couple weeks. Hopefully he's back after the bye week. I would assume that would be the case. But again, he's another guy that's been hurt the entire year, so hopefully everything goes well for him. And last but not least, guard/center Chris Reed, still dealing with a foot injury. He is questionable to play this Sunday. None of these guys are starters, so we shouldn't be worried too much about this. We just have to worry about the depth behind those position groups, even though we still have a lot of depth at wide receiver. We still have some decent depth at linebacker and guard/center. I mean, Chris Reed will probably not have to play pending, injuries that might happen, and I hope that doesn't happen because that would suck. Right, but both Reed and Naylor are in their practice windows and could still miss Sunday's game. Brian Asamoah missed the game against the Green Bay Packers, but did practice all week. So it sounds like Brian Asamoah should be ready to rock and roll this Sunday. Probably a game time decision. As for Chris Reed and Jalen Naylor, both practice windows have been opened up, so they won't play this weekend, even though they could be activated. I just don't see that happening. Maybe next weekend against the New Orleans Saints is when we could expect them to be back. We also have had 3 players removed from the injury report who were added to that report earlier this week. First and foremost, KJ Osborne, who is dealing with the chest injury. He is good to go. Brandon Powell also good to go, which is big news because we need these receivers as much as possible to help out rookie quarterback Jaren Hall, who's getting his first start this Sunday. So having those weapons for him to throw to is definitely crucial and plays a factor in who is going to win this ball game. And also, one of our best defensive backs, cornerback Caleb Evans, dealing with a neck injury. He is also off the injury report. All 3 of these players should be ready to rock and roll. And all 3 players got banged up against the Packers. Now, having Osborne and Powell active will be huge for Jaren Hall, which I did touch on. So that's the injury report for the Minnesota Vikings. As for the Atlanta Falcons, most of you have already heard the news that Drake London will not be playing. He's added to that injury report of being out for Atlanta. Atlanta doesn't have any questionable players. They don't have any off the injury report players. They just have 3 players that are specifically not going to be playing this Sunday. We already talked about Drake London, who is dealing with a groin injury. He will not be playing, which is good news for our defense, which means we should be able to worry about the medium to short routes. Don't have to worry about the deep ball necessarily. Let's watch Kyle Pitts. Let's watch Jonnu Smith and the other receivers they got going there. I believe Matt Collins or whatever the case may be, especially with Taylor Heineke at quarterback. Should be a little bit easier on our secondary, at least for the time being. Also, safety DeMarco Helms, I believe, hamstring injury. He's not playing. And fullback Keith Smith, who has a concussion, is also not playing for the Atlanta Falcons. But the big one there to look at is Drake London, who will not be playing this Sunday, which is really, really good news for our Minnesota Vikings, who have one of a pretty solid defense, and the fact that they won't be able to have that deep ball in their repertoire, even though they could try, it gives us a little bit of an edge, even though we do have a rookie quarterback starting, Jaren Hall. So hopefully our offensive line can hold up and give him time in the pressure or time in the pocket to really make those decisions and utilize his feet if need be. So look, that's the injury report for Minnesota Vikings at the Atlanta Falcons this Sunday. You guys can let me know what your thoughts. Do we win this ball game? I think we should. I think we're very capable of it. Maybe we'll see some Josh Dobbs. I'm not 100% sure how it's going to look, but I do know our Minnesota Vikings should come out victorious this weekend. So you guys let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It'd be much, much appreciated. Have a great rest of your night, folks, and Skol Vikes.